This Tank mobile video is sponsored by HipChat.
Hey there, it's Tankerl, and this here, yes, I know you know what it is the HTC One M9. This is the 2015 edition of the HTC One, and it is an iteration over the previous two models, and I'll get into some of the details of these, the changes here, but you know, this is definitely the most gorgeous and beautiful Android phone on the market today. It's really remarkable how much small details make a difference, and this phone really embodies that. Of course, it's still unibody metal, but it's got a two-tone finish this year, which is really incredible. So let me kind of walk you through this phone and give you a tour first on the outside, then we'll talk about the specs and the software, and then of course the big question mark, the big bone of contention, as it were, the camera. So let's get started. I've only had this for a few days, so this is really based on kind of more of a preliminary time with the device. So in the front, as you can see, is a beautiful display. It's actually very similar to last year's display. It's the Super LCD 3. It's an IPS panel. It's 1080p, so 1080 by 1920. It's a 5-inch display still. And it looks great, but it's not, you know, a record-shattering, earth-shattering screen by any means. It looks fine. It doesn't quite have as gorgeous viewing angles as what you'd expect today, I think, though. But, you know, again, overall, no complaints. Looks great. High DPI 41. But, you know, the competition is obviously going to Quad HD in this size, so you know, it's not obviously the latest and greatest, which is really interesting. Of course, most of the Quad HD displays today are on larger phones, like 5.5 inches and bigger. But, you know, the Galaxy S6 is coming soon with a Quad HD display that's around the same size. So, an interesting choice. It's covered in Gorilla Glass 4. And then, of course, you can see clearly there's the boom sound speakers. These have been improved this year. They sound even better. As if that was even possible. This is kind of crazy. HTC seems to be improving on this boom sound concept, and it's really quite remarkable. The other thing to keep in mind about this boom sound this year is that they're Dolby compatible. They have Dolby branded surround sound capability. So if you're using the phone like this to watch a video, you're going to get some kind of pseudo surround, which sounds really quite impressive. I watched some films and it was pretty decent. On top here, you've got a little notification LED hidden inside this grill. It's tucked away in the bottom row, like about 4 or 5 in. I don't have a notification, but as soon as one pops up, I'll let you know. The light sensor and face detection right here, and this here is a front-facing camera. That this here is an ultra-pixel, 4-megapixel front-facing camera. It's got those large 2-micron pixels, so it gathers a lot of light. I'm not quite ssure what the f-stop is on this, but it's a wide-angle lens. It does not have autofocus. So that's a bit of a disappointment because, for example, the HTC Desire Eye has autofocus on the front camera, and I thought, you know, them putting this ultra-pixel camera on the front would bring it to keep the autofocus, but they didn't. At the bottom here, you have, obviously, the other boom sound speaker, the HTC logo. Buttons are in software, obviously, as you can see here. That's been the case since the HTC One M9 last year's. And then what you'll notice is that there's a bit of a step here. So you got the bezel looks a little smaller because of this step. I don't know if you can see it very well here, but there's a bit of an edge, and that's on purpose, and it really feels great if you grip it. One of the big things about the M8 last year was that it was such a slippery phone because the edges were so slippery, and the back, of course, was too. What was great about the M7 the year before was that it was more of an edgy feel on the edge and wasn't quite as slippery. Also, the radius of the curve on the original M7 was a bit less, and then they went kind of more bulbous on the M8. I didn't like it, and this is kind of a compromise. It's a little bit less of a radius, and it looks, I think, more HTC, and it looks better. So that's some of the kind of details. This definitely feels incredibly great in hand. Now let's flip it over. This is the silver version. You've got that zero gap plastic construction for the antennas. Nothing's changed here. The HTC logo, and here in the back is now a 20 megapixel camera. No ultra pixels here. Autofocus, and here's the thing that I'm going to rant about later: no optical image stabilization, no OIS. I really have no idea what HTC was thinking. This is a flagship device, and today's flagships need OIS, and you'll see why it matters later. Dual LED, dual color flash, that hasn't changed from the M8. Notice there's no longer the dual camera, which really was a gimmick last year. You can do refocusing and depth with software without requiring that secondary camera. So I'm kind of glad they got rid of it. And so that's basically it for the back. I'll give you a bit of a closer look so you can see what it looks like here. You've got the camera pod. I like this design. It's a little bit more, let's get serious about the camera in terms of looks, and I think I like it a lot. Now, let's show you the edges, and so here's kind of the magic. You see this is a silver finish, and then as you go to the edge, the entire edge is gold. It's the same metal, it's just a different kind of anodization and finish. They spend 300 minutes machining every single one of these shells at HTC. It's kind of unbelievable, really. So that's kind of cool. On top now, you no longer have the power lock key. You have a full window for the infrared port. This, as you can see, is flanked by this gold finish. On the left-hand side, you have the nano SIM slot. Beautiful, easy to remove. Again, you can see this kind of harder edge here. There's literally a feeling of something hard, and a feeling of something hard as you get up to this step that I described earlier. So it feels great in hand. On the bottom here, you have the headphone jack, micro USB charger, data port. And again, about the details, you know what it feels like to insert a micro USB plug into a phone. This connector just feels premium. It's kind of hard to explain, but I've never felt a micro USB port feel so good when you insert a connector into it. And it's the kind of attention to detail that I really love, and that HTC just excels at. On the right hand side here, you have all the business. You have the power lock key now relocated here. It's slightly machined, so you can actually feel that it's the power lock key. It's a little low for my liking. I keep hitting the volume button, but if you're coming from a Lumia, you'll be happy. If you're coming from a Nexus or a Galaxy, this is a bit low. Volume rocker, 2 separate buttons. I kind of wish I had joined them somehow. You have, of course, micro SD card slot expansion right here. So that's the walk around. In terms of guts, you have a Snapdragon 810 in there. So this is like the G Flex 2 from LG. One of the first phones was 810 on board, and it's kick-ass. It's super fast. It's super powerful. It does get a little warm though, but then again, you have a metal case here to dissipate the heat. So it definitely seems to be a warm processor, that 810. 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of built-in storage. Again, micro SD expansion. So keep that in mind. This is a pretty decent amount of storage by default, but if you need to go up, you can expand it, I believe, up to 128 gigabytes. So that's the guts. There's a 2840 milliamp hour battery in there. So far, I've barely used the phone, so it's hard for me to tell what the battery life is like, but it is pretty good. I would say that you can probably go a day and a half, maybe 2. But again, it's hard to tell. If you start doing some compute intensive stuff, like using the camera a lot or the display a lot, or if you're playing games, it's not going to last you that long. The detail on this phone is just wow. Like, I mean, Apple does a good job, and HTC's traditionally done a good job, and Samsung's pushing the envelope with the new GS6 and GS6 Edge, but nothing can touch this. Like this silver and gold, dual edge metal, holy crap. Like, I mean, this is unbelievable quality here. I don't know how to explain this to you. You have to touch this phone. If you go to a store when it comes out, just get the real one, hopefully not a plastic demo, but there's nothing like it. It's kudos to HTC. This is the kind of stuff they do well. And I kind of like this idea that they're iterating, kind of like the Porsche 911, It's like the HTC One. We keep tweaking it until we get it right. So yeah, this is the HTC One M9. I know it's a long review, but I'm glad you watched through the whole thing because I had a lot to say. And so stay tuned for more reviews. Like this review. Tune in to my YouTube channel. Find me on Twitter. I'm TNKGRL. My blog is tankgirl.com, tnkgrl.com. yeah, stay tuned for more videos. Cheers.